And we're going to get this started. Okay, so first off, everyone who's here, whether you're hiding, you don't have sound and video, whether it's been a rough day or a really great day, hooray. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. I am, you can also, I brought my fancy water today so even I am going to be not eating, but I will be drinking while we talk. It's elderberry water. Never heard of it. It's exciting. So, please feel free to eat or drink. We know this is many of your lunch times, but that's why we put it here. Um, Also, don't frantically worry about taking notes throughout this thing unless you want to. We are recording it, so please be sure to be aware that if you ask a spicy question, that spicy question is showing up on the recording. So, you all are programming librarians. You know this. This is nothing new to you. But we are just so glad to be here together and to learn. So, who is we? Why are we here? Let's do a quick reminder. So, this is a program of MECollab, which is where all the cool programming librarians are nowadays, which is us programming outline librarians getting together in person, online, and sharing. So, throughout the state of Maine. And it's a win-win for everyone. And so, but as part of that, we also have been listening to our members to say, wait a minute, we want these skills, and that library is doing something cool, but we want to copy it. And how do we exactly do that? We need some more information. And that is how I got tasked on the steering committee to find the clever repair humans. And I said, well, I know one, but I know of more. So, and then when I cold emailed Allie and Jasmine, I didn't even have to strong arm them or throw pom-poms at them like I have to do with John, who's my cubicle mate. They said yes right away, and we're more than happy to join us. So, first off, thank you for all of your public service, you folks, and thank you for joining us here today. For those of you who are in the audience, this is what the way we're going to format this is I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions based on everything you've been asking me. And then also feel free to put your questions into chat. I will be monitoring chat. So, and we can ask those as well. Or unmute yourself, show yourself if you can. Obviously, we love to see your smiling faces or grumpy faces. Whatever face you have is really fine. I'll laugh at you though if you're too grumpy, um, since I'm the bouncer here. Um, and we're going to get started. So we have an hour. All right. So, um, Jasmine, Ali, and John, thank you. First off, can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in repair cafes and what your repair cafe, if that's what you call it, or your repair organization or team, what that looks like? Let's see. Any one of you is welcome to go first. I was gonna say, how about Jasmine? Perfect. I was gonna point at one of you if not.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our repair cafe mostly just goes by repair cafe, but officially we are Belfast Community Works. And my friend Sasha Kutzi and I started the group, gosh, maybe in 2016. It's been quite a while. With the vision of having a makerspace with a physical location in Belfast, Maine. And we were both homeschooling parents at the time. We had um, lots of distracted time. I guess if you've ever been parenting children who are around a lot, there's time available, but it's distracted time. And so we thought, well, a makerspace would really suit the needs of our families, our individual children, and also the community at large. And we sort of envisioned like tools and maybe a jewelry area and a fiber area and maybe woodworking, depending on the size of the space. We had big visions. And we got started that way by just putting a big call out to the community to say, what's the interest? Do we have makers here? Do we have tinkerers? I think our specific call was for tinkerers. And we ended up with a meeting at our local library of maybe
Amazing.
20 people that first meeting. And we had a couple of meetings like that and then put together a steering committee that became our board. And then we did found a nonprofit. And and then we just got started from there with some huge events that pulled in a bunch of different people and a bunch of different materials. But we started out with maybe just 4 a year. We used a local church space that was very large, and had like a big event. And that's sort of how we got started. And it's morphed a lot, but I would say the past 3 years, we have had monthly repair cafes that have been much smaller. We have 7 to 9 volunteers, but we have a lot of participants, 20 to 30 each month.
That's
So it's been going
amazing.
really well. Yeah,
I remember those big events when you started. I was like, oh, who are those cool kids? I want to get
it
to
was
know
really
them.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and just to clarify, Jasmine, do you guys have a maker space now, or are you still where are these smaller events located?
So we don't have a makerspace. We have sort of moved away from that vision as time has gone. We've got some really dedicated volunteers, and everyone feels really happy with the way that it's going.
Amazing.
And I'm not at a point in my life or career where I can run a makerspace right now, even though I could have 10 years ago. So having a monthly completely volunteer event works great. And the past year or so, we've been hosting them at the YMCA, which has been amazing. It's a great location.
Super
But we have
cool.
bounced around a lot over the past few years, and had some really successful spaces, but the Y seems to be working really well for us.
Oh, great. I didn't
Yeah.
realize you were at the Y. That's super cool. Okay,
Yeah.
see, I knew I was going to learn things.
Yeah.
Uh, awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that
Sure.
story. All right, what do you think? Allie, you want to go next? So just again, looking for a little bit about where you're at, how you got involved, and because there might be people around your area who want to plug in.
Great. Great. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. I have like a real dream of seeing versions of this pop up all over the place. And I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you all and hearing what you all are hearing about this idea. Um, I can say so. I'm in Portland. We have Portland repair meetups. And I do think the name difference is sort of meaningful. We were sort of
Mhm.
hoping to create something that was very similar to a repair cafe, but a little bit more focused on like mutuality and maybe blurring the distinction between experts and novices a little bit where possible. Um, and yeah, so we've been doing it for about a year and a half. We started one April ago, and I guess I was trying to think of how I started in this idea, and I think I was looking for a project around 2021 or so. I was really interested in the solidarity economy and
Hmm.
looking at sort of new models that of doing things that can exist within capitalism but are based on different principles. And so I was thinking about worker cooperatives and community land trusts. And I realized that just based on where I was at in my life and what made me happy, I really wanted to find something that could be sort of like immediately doing things rather than planning in a small group of people something that would feel like high stakes. And I think a repair meetup just felt like, all right, we all are surrounded by this crap and it's breaking all the time. Let's see if we can't just like get together with people and start feeling out what we might be able to do about it. So I just sent an email to basically everyone I knew locally to say who's interested in brainstorming about this. And many people wrote back. I will say, honestly, most of those people have never showed up to an event, which is fine because they're new people who are showing up to events. Um, and yeah, I don't know what else. I guess I'll say they're about monthly. We do small appliances and textiles, sometimes bikes. Um, I take some notes. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, we try to really emphasize that it's fun and
Yeah.
community building as much as it is like fixing your stuff. And I'm always learning things, and it sort of feels like something we're co-creating with the people around us, and that is really fun.
Awesome. And where do you do it now?
We originally were in the community center at the East End School, and then we switched to the Munjoy Hill Neighborhood Organization because it was free. And we also have a person who's very involved who lives in Woodford's Corner who was advocating for us to switch there. So We have one more on Munro Hill, and then for 2025, at least the first three are going to be in Woodford's Corner at the Odd Fellows Hall, which is a place I've never been in really.
It has a wonderful bookstore in the bottom. That is my
Right.
hood. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
will see
cool.
you there.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
It's right, it's Maine, right? I was going to say we all have one degree of connections. I've heard about you good people from my friends and yeah. Anyway, so thank you again on multiple ways and multiple levels. And if you could see some of these smiling faces, I can guarantee they're smiling because I know these humans. Yeah, you'd know them too, or it's a 1 degree. So that's awesome. That's so exciting. Um, Beyond just me personally, I just love having these opportunities here. And then let's see. So we've got Midcoast, we've got down south in Portland, and then we've got some Brunswick. So John, would you give a little? How did you get into this?
I mostly came across the idea through a book. Repair Cafe and the International Organization has published a book about repair cafes that I thought was absolutely fascinating. And then I heard about Jasmine's Belfast event. I was extremely jealous that it was too far away for me to be involved and participate with. So we decided to start our own. We started by reaching out just to the volunteers we already had here at the library and seeing who would be interested or who had skills they could offer for their community. And we had a fantastic turnout. We
Hold on,
probably
John,
started,
you're actually fading out a little bit. If you make yourself louder at all?
not particularly.
Okay. Maybe it's just me because I'm in the other room. Are you guys having trouble hearing him as well? You're okay.
Is this any better?
Yes. Yeah,
Try that.
thanks.
So we started our events with about 5 participants. And then really from there, it's grown through word of mouth. Anyone that even mentions some particular skill about Repair Cafe gets, I call it my short speech. I try to sell them on the event, either as a participant or as just a guest to come in and see what's going on. We started our events a little over 2 years ago now, doing every other month. And then from there, we've actually expanded through partnerships with other organizations. I see Hannah here in the chat from the Patent Free Library, as well as the Habitat for Humanity, also in Bath. They've been great partnerships. The big benefit is they already have volunteers that are already associated with their events as well. So they had a big pool that they could reach out to and just kind of put together a big conglomerate of anyone who may be interested or able to assist with these kind of events. And now we've grown big enough that we hold monthly events, and they've been fantastic. We average about the same for Jasmine, about 20 to 30 people, with about 6 to 7 volunteers for each event.
Awesome. So as you can see, folks, they're different models, nonprofits, libraries, volunteers, all good, all thriving in different ways. So I'm just going to keep going through my questions and pinging them, but folks, feel free to message and say, Hazel, what I really want to know is this, or so because we want to answer those as well. Um, and so a lot of these questions that we don't have to go around for, I would just really like everyone's thoughts. So I think one of the intimidating things is you try to do this event, but what if it's the wrong type of repair cafe? So what do you think has been essential to your repair cafes that is really important to have at a repair cafe? I'm going to keep calling them repair cafes, not just because that's a common term, but obviously I mean yours individually. What do you think has been an essential component? I thought maybe it would be coffee. But I mean, I would love to hear what else you folks think.
I get really into the outreach, and I think having people know about it obviously is important. We've learned now I know this is not like about what you want at the thing itself. So if that's what you're going for, I can focus on that. But basically just like we have now like 5 different ways of potentially reaching people in the public to let them know about it. And sometimes when we encounter someone, they're like, oh, I saw that other thing. And I think that helps them know it's real.
Will
And then,
you,
oh,
will
go
you
ahead.
tell us what those 5 things are?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if it's actually 5. I have an email list, so we collect people's email addresses when they show up, so we can let them know about. I send them like a thank you after the event
Oh,
is over and let them know about the next one. We have an Instagram account. We have posters, flyers that we put up around town. Um, and I'm like a, would-be graphic designer. I think it's fun to make visuals, so that's like an added bonus for me. And someone had the idea to show up at farmers markets or First Fridays the week of the repair meetup. So we can say like, oh, here's this thing we're doing. It's actually happening on Sunday. And we collect people's email addresses, and that's been surprisingly successful. We've gotten a lot of people to show up because of those. I don't know if that's 5, but it's
that's brilliant, whether it's 5 or not.
yeah. And then what was I going to say about, oh, I think for me, like at the event itself, of really beyond the obvious things, I would say like having a person who's really friendly, who's there to greet people and welcome people and like let them know they're in the right place and give them a sense of like the lay of the land is useful.
Oh yeah, that's gold. Okay, that I didn't think about it that way. Smart. All right, Jasmine or John, anything to add? Essential
Um,
items?
well, I just wanted to add to Allie's list of getting the word out because
Mm,
we also use a free press, which is just a free paper in the mid-coast area that a lot of people pick up and read. So we try to post in that regularly that we have an ongoing event. Um, and then we also, no, I'm forgetting what I was going to say. Oh, local radio stations. We don't really anymore advertise because we've been very consistent and through word of mouth. But in the beginning, WERU and our Belfast radio station, we would just have a little plug on there that said our location and times.
and
And
did
that's
you
been,
have to pay for that, or did they just do it because it was a
no, they
community?
would
Yeah,
just do it.
yeah,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
and then the other thing I was going to just follow up with that Ali said is having a greeter is really, really useful. We just have that as a standing position every time we have an event. And that person has volunteers. Um, if they're new, they sign in and we collect information about the volunteers to have emergency information just in case something happens. Um, but then we have participants sign in, and it's very basic, not to be overwhelming. Just what did you bring to be repaired? And then your name, and maybe we ask for a phone number or an email in case we need to contact them. We don't usually have to, but and then that's it. And then the other essential things, I sort of did a little poll of our group,
Yeah.
and our greeter said basic house rules are really
Mm,
important. And mostly giving the volunteers the authority to say, I'm not comfortable fixing this. Because if the volunteers aren't having fun, then it's not going to work. So that was one big thing. Another thing was name tags. Really
ah,
great to have name tags. When we started, we did have coffee and snacks, like a real repair cafe. And then through COVID, we had to step away from that. It just was too tricky. And we actually never really went back.
yeah.
So we do have some very dedicated participants who come almost every month, and they have started to bring snacks. Um, so we have snacks again, and because we're at the Y, there is a little coffee station at the Y for members.
Ooh, nice.
We would like to, we've repaired a couple of espresso machines, and so we might just snag one of those next time and start using that. But we haven't made it a staple. And so even though it's in our name, it doesn't seem like a requirement. Nobody's said, hey, wait, where's the coffee? Yeah, they haven't missed it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's all great points, and many I wouldn't have thought of. Um, all right, John, do you have anything to add to that crew?
It's a different experience. We do rely on coffee to help get our volunteers out of bed in the morning at an early event. It does help. It also really opens conversation between your volunteers and your patrons that come. Sometimes they just like sitting and chatting with people over a cup of coffee. Facilitators are amazing. That's how I normally serve at the Repair Cafe. I greet people as they arrive, make sure they get the waivers signed to protect the organization and the library here, as well as our volunteers, and then kind of go over the house rules and introduce them to the volunteer when they're available to help them. So having a glowing personality isn't a requirement, but it does help. Trying to think.
You
Otherwise,
fake
it's
it just
really
fine, Jon.
it's hard. Otherwise, it's really just the personality of your volunteers. They are the reason people are going to keep coming back to your events. And I always tell people that at the end of the day, these are basically just neighbors through your community. You'll have no idea how people are going to make weird connections, people they went to high school with, or their first marriage, or anything like that. The stories you hear are insane. And that's why people keep coming back, is for your volunteers and the knowledge they have to share.
Oh, that's awesome. So some of you mentioned some things that I want to follow up on, which is this concept of a liability waiver and what happens in an emergency and kind of that just in case scenario. First off, has anything ever bad ever happened to any of you? Okay. So like yeah, librarians take notes, just like lending thing, right? So okay. And then second off, though, it sounds like there is some protection for that because when you have a greeter, you then have a sheet that says like what does it say?
Basically, that the library waives all liability. Same thing with the patron that brings the item in. It includes our house rules that we can't guarantee we'll be able to repair something, and that if anything happens to the item, or if it re-breaks or breaks in a different way, we hold no liability. The volunteer holds no liability. It's just kind of a cover-all. Thankfully, we've never had to use it. The other thing we really had to look into when we started our event is insurance for the library. Thankfully, our insurance company says we didn't need anything additional since we're just using our space and local expertise. Other situations, other libraries may be different. We are a nonprofit with only a tiny bit of our budget provided by the town. Other libraries may have different orders, so you should certainly look into that.
And Jasmine and Allie, it sounds like you have a similar um, conduct house rules situation.
Yeah, it sounds like our waiver is basically the same as John's. We did add in there a place for the participant to sign that whatever they're bringing in is broken already. Because we have had, I think just twice it's happened that someone felt like, oh my gosh, you broke my thing. And because maybe it was broken in a slightly different way. But we were like, well, it was broken when you brought it in here. So we did add that just for someone to acknowledge the thing I brought in is broken and maybe we'll be able to fix it. We also looked into insurance, but it was not affordable. And thankfully, as John said, we've been operating. We were at the library for a while, we were at a church for a while, now we're at the Y. All of those places carry a large scale public insurance. And then we happen to have a lawyer on our board. And he, just sort of, he found the liability thing. I think the one we use is from the Repair Cafe organization. And yeah, he's like, this should be fine. So we haven't had any troubles.
Amazing. And Allie, thank you so much. They just put the sign and release into chat, and I already accessed it and looked at it just to make sure it worked.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what you all are saying. We tried hard to make the language in the release as comprehensible to a layperson and friendly as possible. So we added language about like, we're not going to sue each other. It was a little bit less of like a us and you thing. And I would say, yeah, it was one of the repair like experts who really wanted some kind of waiver in there. And that's why we have it.
Cool.
And yeah.
Do any of you, so this is something I know that at Curtis we're working on is getting a web page set up to talk about the Repair Cafe and things like that. And so you can have a schedule and you could copy it well and things like that. It's on my to-do list actually. John got to deputize that one. Thank you, John. Um, but Jasmine and Ali, do you guys have like an online presence at all for your for your repair cafes?
We have a website, but it's just a static page. I haven't looked at it in years, honestly. We do have one member that keeps up a Facebook page that's a little bit more current. And I think that's it.
Cool.
Jasmine, I think I've tried to find you all online and have sometimes landed in Ireland. I feel like there's
yes, that happened.
We have just Instagram. I aspire to have Facebook, but I honestly, it's like makes me crazy every time I try to figure it out, and I've almost given up. But one day I'll probably try again. But our Instagram is fairly active and feels like a useful tool.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Again, I think this is great, right? It's the diversity of responses, right? Like you can do this in whatever way works for you and your community and, meet people where they're at.
I will say that in the last few weeks, we've had a boatload of questions about our upcoming events because we plan our events 3 or 4 months in advance. So immediately after this current one, they are looking for dates for the next events. So a place to kind of look up all that information and direct people to is going to be a big help to anyone.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we talked a little bit about how we make sure folks keep showing up. Folks are friendly, greeters, things like that. But I'm also curious about the folks who shouldn't show up, as in the sense of what repair doesn't work well for the repair cafe. I'm not talking about humans not showing up, but like what do you hope not to run in the door, right? You're like, oh, that's not a good thing. And have you had any troubles with that, or do people bring kind of normal stuff and there's been no issues?
The only thing we really haven't gotten into would be small engine repair
Mhm.
because we have most of our events inside. Uh, the most normal step for a repair would be to test an item a few times to see what's going wrong. So trying to test a small engine inside of a building would be very bad. Otherwise, honestly, no. They'll bring in odd stuff. We had someone come in trying to get their chainsaw sharpened. We had someone come in with a basket made out of an old armadillo shell. So they have odd items. It's going to come in. We do the best we can to connect them with repairers that are expertise in their items. There's no guarantee that will happen. And if we can't repair an item, we'll just explain that to the patron, explain why, whether it's a lack of parts, a lack of knowledge, and try to direct them to places where they can find that, whether it's looking it up for themselves via kind of accredited resources, or even going to a professional who specializes in that kind of area. We do not compete with the third-party professional repair organizations based on scale, based on knowledge. Some things are just too advanced for us. So we are always happy to direct them to those experts. And honestly, having someone who's involved in this kind of hobby or area, they know the people that are in the area to do this professionally and know how to get in touch with them. And that's the best source to have to direct people to other information.
Awesome. And by the way, we did buy the chainsaw sharpening tool. John came back after that repair cafe and was like, guess what, Hazel? We got to ask for this. We don't loan chainsaws, but we can loan the sharpeners. Jasmine, Ali, any ideas about any stories about repair that hasn't worked for you folks, or is it all pretty okay?
Been pretty good for us. Like John said, we make a note on Facebook and on all our publications that we don't do small engine repair because we're inside,
Mm.
and it's just really messy on top of being smelly. And we tend to not do chairs because they have to be clamped and set for a long time to be safe, and we don't have a physical location that belongs to us. But if we had a space, we would definitely do it. It's something that can be repaired well with somebody just being careful enough. So if there's space to store a chair for, whatever, 24 to 48 hours, whatever the glue requires, then that's a great option because we do have people asking about that. Otherwise, we do a lot of small appliances, some tech stuff, but we tend not to do a lot of computers. A lot of ornaments. We got holiday decorations. We've done a few doll repairs, which has been fun. And to just follow up with what John said about local repair shops, when we got started, we did reach out to, there's an iPhone repair and bike repair and a couple of other places in our area to just let them know what we're doing. And we got their information, and we make sure that we refer folks to them because we don't want to be seen as competition.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Ali, what about you? Do you have what are the type of things you're seeing to be repaired or haven't seen, or
Yeah, for a while we were like initially we were saying no phones or computers, in part because it just seemed like a whole other ball of wax. And also I initially I think had that similar ethos of not wanting to compete with people who were trying to make a livelihood out of repair. And I still feel that way to some degree, although I think some of the boundaries have been blurred a little bit in ways that I think are okay. But yeah, so far we still don't do phones or computers. I just chatted with somebody who's involved with Fix-It clinics, which are similar but a little different in the Boston area. And he made it sound like oftentimes young people get really excited about phone repair stuff happening. So that's just something that I'm thinking about. But yeah, we don't do those, and we haven't really had anyone come in with like a category of thing that we can't work with. I think I also, because it's more of a community thing, I think people really intuitively understand that we're going to try our best, and like sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. And no, people tend, I think we've been lucky so far that people don't come into these events with like a customer's always right. This is a transaction kind of mentality, and I think that's important.
yes, it seems like you guys are building a culture, and correct me if I'm wrong, in all of these locations where it's a little more community based, it's a little more helping your neighbor, it's a little more we're going to do the best we can together, right? I'm seeing a lot of nods. Okay. Okay, us librarians know something about that too. Yeah. Um, the kind of on that note, I think something that's worth noting, many libraries also do have like tech times. So people can come in and get technology help or something. So if you're a librarian that already has that, it might be kind of a natural fit into this kind of repair ethos. Um, so another question that actually came up. Wow, Karen, do you have my list of questions? That's really impressive because I swear this is the next on the list. Is there a Repair Cafe listserv, or do those conversations tend to be part of the Library of Things listservs? Where do you folks ask questions and build community as part of this repair community in the world? Is there a listserv that you can ask questions to and share stuff on?
No, as far, I mean, no one's invited me onto one. I don't know if it exists. I think it would be awesome to have something like that. I feel like, I'm certainly psyched to help build something like that if people on this call feel into it. I just learned about a Discord channel or chat. I'm like a little new to Discord, but apparently that Fix It group has a Discord channel where they talk about fixes. I think that's more about like technical stuff. Um, so the last thing is that the DEP, Jon knows this, and probably you do too, Jasmine, although I'm not sure I've seen you on one of those calls, but the DEP in Maine has been organizing quarterly calls that are sort of about folks doing repair things. And those have been really helpful.
Okay, Jon or Jasmine, any insight there into other ways to plug in for newbies?
I haven't looked a lot at it, but I think that the Repair Cafe organization, which is in UK, I think their website is very extensive and has a lot of information. But we honestly, we have 3 or 4 really experienced, talented volunteers, and we just ask them. They seem to know everything. And they have their own friends, and we use YouTube a lot. And we put it out to the community a lot. We have a couple of just community big email groups, whether it's through church organizations or homeschool groups or other things that we, put out there like, hey, we're looking for somebody who knows how to mend this thing, or we know somebody who knows how to repair things. And we tend to get somebody. who has that knowledge that will either come and help or that we can contact. But it would be great, like Ali said, if there was some kind of group or listserv or something.
Thanks, Jasmine. Jon, we want to talk about a summit or anything you might be speaking at?
There is a group that I'm putting a link in the chat now that is kind of a national organization full of people involved in the repair economy throughout the nation that do a lot of repair cafes. There is a annual summit that they had that's coming up next month that I have been sidearmed into doing a similar talk with at the impact of our repair cafe. But they also have, I believe, monthly Zoom meetings where they just get together and chat about things that are going on. I was trying to find a link to them directly, but I wasn't seeing one. But when I may post the email to get involved with the organizer, and you can certainly receive the links that way.
But this is something too, like if there was a need for this in Maine, like if we're getting started, there's certainly options, right? Where we can figure this kind of thing out. So I think that's, if you start to run into barriers, let someone know. And we can figure that out. Because yeah, it could go on a listserv like the Library of Things listserv we already have. We could make a repair specific one. It could do all sorts of stuff. Um, so kind of on that note of getting started, Jasmine, Ali, and Jon, would you folks be willing to answer questions if librarians had them? Would it be okay? I want to respect your time, but if folks ran into a fix and couldn't figure it out, be like, okay, can I come see your, repair cafe and check this out and see how this works? Is that something that you folks might be willing to do? Yeah. Okay. So see, friendly folks get together. I mean, so we're all in this community together, helping each other out, right? Um, so another question a lot of times that comes up is how much money do you need to do this? Do you need money to do this? What if you do you have any funding sources you would recommend? Are there tools you need to have? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I'll say we have almost no money. We did write a small grant in the beginning, and we have a community roundup program at our Belfast co-op, and we applied for that and we won that. So we raised a little bit of money a couple of years ago that way. And then we have donation jars. And I would say we make $50 to $100 most events just in donations from people. And we have a bank account, but we haven't needed to spend any money except for occasional parts. We have one volunteer who regularly keeps a stockpile of like switches and plugs and cords. And he did recommend, like anybody starting up, it would be great if they could spend $100 and build just a kit that has those random things. Because I think he said switches, light sockets, thermal fuses, replacement cords with molded plugs. I don't even know what that means. Screws, nuts, zipper attachments. And then we use a lot of thread and patches. An iron is great to have. Yeah, I would say that's it. But otherwise, we haven't found that we've needed money for anything. We did have a space that let us use their space for free, but we gave them a donation regularly. And we do buy all our volunteers Christmas gift cards.
Oh,
so yeah.
We don't do that, Jon.
Well, before this call, we didn't have much of a budget for it. So honestly, we do rely on maybe $20 to $30 per event is just for the food and coffee purchase. Like Jasmine said, I pick up a few parts to have on hand, mostly for our lamp guy, to do sockets and switches and stuff like that. Otherwise, our volunteers have been very generous. If they're involved in the hobby, they'll come with their own tools. And in most cases, I do supply anything that we have lying around, which through our Library of Things is a great collection. Otherwise, some have also even volunteered some of their own parts from their spare parts bin. Uh, Otherwise, that's really it. Not much of a startup cost at all.
I like to thank you, John, for that. But I like to what Jasmine said about I don't even know what that is. So you don't have to be the expert, right? It's your volunteers are like you're not, Allie. Like, yeah, you're okay. You don't have to know what that is. Okay. That's I think reassuring for some of us on this call. What about you,
I just
Allie? Same, did you use any money?
Um, yeah, I'm just thinking about all the tools and things that have been donated by people. I feel like when
Oh.
you talked about like culture change, and I think part of the change that I know I think about a lot is like resisting this idea of scarcity in the world. And I do think that this is such a nice practice in that because really so much has just like come out of the woodwork to help us. Somebody showed up for a bike focused repair event this summer and he had found a bike stand at a dump. And somebody else,
Oh.
donated like a whatever. People just like donate tools regularly um and yes, often people will bring their own tools if they're helping with a specific kind of repair, and that's super generous of them. And it's funny because, if something breaks, people bring their own sewing machines, and if it breaks, like somebody's often there to help fix it. And yeah, but so I have basically just funded these on my own. It's not been very much money. I would say mostly it's like we print up some flyers to hang up and some flyers to hand out. So I'd say it's like maybe $50 a month for those, and then maybe another 30 or 40 for snacks. Um, it's funny, my partner is a coffee roaster, and it hadn't occurred to me to serve coffee at these, but we're serving some
So
coffee.
here, so now we know where the really good coffee is.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to just like go to Trader Joe's and buy a bunch of snacks and put them out. And I think it's almost just as much to be able to tell people there will be snacks as a way of like conveying what the vibe will be as much as like having things there for people to eat. Um, yeah, I think also the DEP, Rob, is that his name, sent out something about a DEP grant that is available annually-ish for repair projects that are starting out or doing something new, which we haven't applied for, but I think is a thing.
Cool. Cool. Thank you. This is all so helpful, folks. Thank you so much. Jasmine, I think I cut you off as I was asking Allie something, which I did not mean to do. I saw you go off mute.
Oh, I
So,
was just going to add in that our volunteers, they tend to have these big stockpiles of
mm,
parts. I think it could be overwhelming for a group if you had volunteers that didn't have materials. But if you just, put out the expectation for people to also try to bring in parts if they have any understanding of what might be wrong, or what happens often for us is someone will bring it in, our tinkerers will look at it, and then they'll say, this is the part that you need. And often they'll
got
look
it.
it up, they'll pull out their phone, they'll look it up, they'll help the person identify it right there. And we refer people to our local hardware store in downtown Belfast. They have everything, and it's 5 minutes away from the Y. So there's always people running to the hardware store or the fabric store and coming back, and within our 4 hour window and getting it done. So that's pretty fun.
That's awesome. I love that image. Zip, 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 zip,
Right.
which is such a great sharing economy thing. Like, oh, we can go here, we can go here.
Yeah.
Um, Super cool. Um, All right. So there's some awesome stuff going on in the chat, John. Thank you for answering some of that as well. There's some resources there. So librarians, if you do want to grab some of those links, I would encourage it. I will also send it out after as part of the recording. You will not miss it. Um, uh, I just want to make sure. So if there is a librarian near you who wants to get involved and do this stuff, are you folks, have you ever collaborated with libraries? Or, I mean, John, I know you're a librarian, but but and I know you did that in your intro, but is this something where we need, you think we need like four big ones in the state, or it would be kind of great to have them in every little community? Do you folks have you guys taken the time to think about that and think about how um Or is it just a question of having if a local librarian comes to talk to you, great, great, come talk to us and we'll see if there's a good synergy.
I firmly believe the more events like this throughout the state, the better,
Okay.
simply because every community is different. You're going to have different needs, different requirements, anything like that. And you don't need to partner with just libraries either. I would love to partner with our local social clubs or our local folk school to kind of partner and expand the services here. It doesn't need to be just libraries. We've also been collaborating with our sustainability board for our town council. So they've been partnering with us and showing up to our events to just kind of continue the conversation with the sustainability front. So feel free to partner with anyone you think might have any tangential interest or connection with these kind of events.
Cool.
Yeah, I would say we held our event at the library for a few months, which was great, but the space wasn't always available when we needed it. So the library was great to work with, but the YMCA has been really good to partner with. And we end up serving folks who maybe hadn't sought that out. It's, we meet on the third Saturday of the month in the morning, and there's usually youth basketball or youth soccer going on. So we've
Mm.
got families coming in and they walk right past our room and they pop in and they see what's happening and then they come to expect it. And so we pick up a lot of the public that way. And the director of our Y has been trying to put together some more youth programming. So we do get younger folks that way. But we also have had some in the past, a couple of previous events happened at the tech center here, the tech school. And we were able to collaborate with some students there who knew some small engine repair and refer folks to them. So I think, yeah, really being open to different groups. I think there's a man in Rockport who had been working on a repair project and he ended up partnering with the transfer station. And I can't remember his details now, but that was a really interesting story. And so I think transfer stations are another great way to directly get stuff out of the line of the landfill. And like Jon said, I think the more groups, the better. And because it's really an opportunity for folks to connect and share skills and information, that having it be community based is kind of important. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Such wisdom in this group.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with that. And I think, in an ideal world, there would be as many of these as there are towns in Maine on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. I mean, Lord knows we have enough stuff around us to keep everybody busy all over the place. And I've been noticing this sort of tension between like wanting to be an evangelical about this and like help spread these everywhere. And also feeling like one thing that feels promising about them is that they can vary so much. And I think there's like a lot of strength in that variety and the ability to be flexible and just find people near you who are like psyched about this idea and want to like emphasize different things, I think is really exciting. I think that's one thing that turned me off about that Repair Cafe International thing that was in the chat, was that they seem to have like this a little bit of like a strict top down, like you must use our logo kind of approach, which is a turnoff to me. But there probably are people who are like, yeah, I don't want to have to think about a logo and like these forms. And that's awesome. So I think just the sort of slight anarchist quality to this is really cool. And I think we could still be coordinated and supporting each other while being really differentiated.
Yeah, I mean, just from hearing you folks speak, obviously the strength in this diverse approaches and diversity of what comes in and this open-mindedness, which is beautiful. And again, librarians on the call know something about. So I want to be sure to I'm watching the time here because I know a lot of us could hang out and talk a long time, or just, have fun. We have one question in the chat that I can see Jon kind of answered, but it's all on the line of what how did you find these volunteers? I have one plug for you, which is I talked to Thomas, who's kind of new to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, last week, month, something, and he wants to work with all of you desperately. So like he's very excited and all libraries on the call, he wants you too. And he has volunteers for every repair cafe, basically. So to fix bicycles. So that is one connection. Do not hesitate to reach out to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. I told him I would let y'all know. And so that's a starting one. But how did you folks find the rest of your volunteers?
I found the our two main people at the Curtis Library Repair Cafe. I went there. I planned one of these events. They still show up at yours though. I planned one of these events and I didn't have any like real super duper experts. I was just like, we're gonna figure it out. And then the week before the event, I went up to Curtis and attended their repair cafe. And I met Sheldon and Paul, and they were super nice and warm and tried hard to fix my vacuum cleaner. And I invited them down, and they started, and they've been showing up, off and on ever since. And that was hugely lucky, and I'm so grateful for them. And I think now I mean, it's a really good question, and I don't really know what would have happened if they hadn't shown up. I think that probably some other people would have come out of the woodwork. Um, and I also think that there are people who like have a lot of skills and have the ability to have even more skills learning from each other. That it's kind of a dynamic thing. Oh, and then the mending people, like people just came out of the woodwork again with mending skills. Like actually a librarian in Portland, Portland Public Library, Jay is a staff person there and has amazing mending skills, and they've been showing up regularly to these meetups and help teaching people how to do beautiful little mending in their sweaters and shirts and stuff. And yeah, with the textile stuff, people those skills feel like more widely shared, and people are psyched about coming in and teaching other people.
Awesome. Jasmine, any tips and tricks?
Most of our volunteers came from our original just call out to the community saying, are you a tinkerer? What do you know about makerspaces? Would you want to be involved? And I think we got three of our volunteers that way, and then the rest came as word of mouth. Or sometimes people will come to Repair Cafe to have something fixed, and then they say like, "Oh, I actually know how to sew," and then we rope them into sewing. And we've fortunately been able to snag a few young people, which has been great. We have an 11-year-old tinkerer and a 13-year-old sewer now who we
Awesome.
picked up. And my own son, he's living in Philadelphia now, but he was 14 when we got started, and he was working as with one of our older guys as his mentor, and he
Oh,
was one of our original repairers. And that's just his thing. He's known how to do it. So I would say, and also thinking of you, Allie, I know there are a couple maker spaces in Portland, and I wonder if you could put up some signs there and get some people who are doing it on their own for fun, going to a maker space to use that space, and maybe they would come to your events too.
yeah.
And the other thing is, I can't remember what it's called, but we have a senior college, and then we have another organization for retired folks, and we get a lot of volunteers from there as well.
Awesome. I actually heard of someone who, when they wanted to get the word out, they just rode the buses in their town and talked about it on the bus, to everyone, which I was like, that's brilliant. So, um, spend a morning doing that and yeah, for whatever library programs. So
That
I
requires
want to,
startup capital.
yeah, um, I want to be respectful of the time. We've got 4 more minutes. So, what did I forget to ask you that's essential? What else should we know that 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 you think is important? Not to put you on the spot either. If you can't think of anything, that's okay too.
I just want to say these are probably the best community events I've ever been a part of, just because not only are you connecting repairers, patrons that may have met each other or not seen each other in 20 years, but also the volunteers. You'll often see with a challenging item, 4 or 5 volunteers crowded around lending their expertise. And that's just the best feeling to know that you've made that connection. And honestly, for any libraries out there, that's the best kind of stories to add into your budget proposals or any kind of board meetings. Those are the stories they want to hear.
I'll also add that in the early days of our project, we hosted, I want to say maybe 6 pretty big focused events. So we had a fiber event that had everything to do with fiber, and we had all these different stations, maybe 6 or 8 stations around a large room. And it was pretty unsustainable to keep doing those events, but we did maybe 5 or 6 of them, and it was a lot of work coordinating all the people, but it was a great way to find out about who had what resources in our community. And so even though it was very heavy on the organizers in the beginning, it really let us connect to a whole lot of folks. And I think that is another place where we got, some of our different experts in different areas. So we had a bike event, we had a yard and garden event, we had a fiber event, we had an appliance event. I think that's everything. And then after that, then we just got shrunk it down and had 1 or 2 representatives from each of those and made it more regular. And it was a hard way to start, but it also kind of gave us the information about who's in our area, what do they know. That was great.
That sounds really replicable too. If you had like 3 libraries in an area where you could each take, 2 of those, and then, you could come together and rotate a repair cafe. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you. Thank you. We are at time. But I know I learned a bunch and I've put on repair cafes. So, you always learn something new. So thank you so much for everything you're doing for our communities and for being willing to be here today to share with, these librarians. I promise you, I know these humans that they're putting thank yous in the chat and smiling at you right now. You just saved them a ton of research time. So, um, and oh, take pictures. Allie says to take pictures. Yeah, great point, Allie. That's a great thing to bring back. Um, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and hopefully we'll be able to shout back ours after we get seed more and more and more of these around the state. So, to be continued. I'll talk to you all again soon, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Hazel.
Thanks, everyone.